Today we want to answer a pretty big dilemma for car enthusiasts. Should you buy a good old 3-pedal 6-speed manual gearbox, or should you get a slick shifting, easy to drive 7-speed dual clutch gearbox in your i20 N Line? Let's find out. Now both of these cars have been built over here at Carmed Bangalore, so that's why we have all of the ambient noise going on. But if you pop open both of these cars' bonnets, the stuff underneath looks pretty similar, but there are some key differences. This manual car over here is a stage 1 tuned car. It's running a code 6 stage 1 tune, and it's running a BMC air intake system, and that's pretty much it when it comes to the engine bay modifications. But if you look down, it has these sick looking Sparco Terra wheels which really give it that rally car kind of vibe, and it's running some custom headlights and some custom fog lights as well. But that's pretty much it. If you go over here to the DCT car, it's running a stage 2 setup. It's running a stage 2 tune from code 6. It's running the same BMC DIA air intake system, and it's running a custom exhaust system and downpipe from code 6 itself. And this one is also running some wheels, and it's running lowering springs as well. 30-40 split on the lowering springs from Cobra, and it's running stance wheels. And of course, the main difference between both of these are the color combinations. This is still running the OEM red lip at the front, whereas this is running this neon green livery or color combination throughout the car, which looks pretty damn sick in my opinion.
Are you driving something like this when you could be driving something like this? Same boring cars know where to find the good stuff. Wait, these are for sale? Your dream car is just a click away. TDH Classifieds. Time to get yourself the car of your dreams.
Couple of modifications I forgot on the DCT car. It's also running the same custom headlight setup and the fog light setup just like the manual, and it has upgraded brakes as well. Brake craft drilled and slotted rotors, which I'm guessing will help in the braking performance by quite a bit. So let's talk price. The base model of the DCT starts from 11.18 lakhs. That is the N6 model. And I think this is not the N6, this is the N8, and it gets a couple of other stuff like a sunroof and some other bits and bobs here and there. But more or less the N6 and N8 don't have that big of a difference. So 11.18 lakhs for the base model DCT, and you get a steering wheel which has paddle shifters from the factory, and these paddle shifters do feel pretty damn nice. In the middle you have your gear selector which has the N logo as well, and the interior of the manual and the DCT car are not that different. The only difference is the gear shifter and the steering wheel which has these paddle shifters, and honestly they do feel pretty premium and pretty nice. So this particular car in the interior also has one very big upgrade, and that is the steering wheel. It gets this chunky carbon fiber steering wheel which looks kind of crazy. Let's now hop into the manual car and talk about the price of that. Hop into the manual car, and like I said, there's no real difference between the interiors of both except for the steering wheel and the gear shifter in the middle. The steering wheel is practically the same except you don't get the paddle shifters, and yeah, it's a really nice steering wheel. You have all of your controls and the N logo as well, and this is the biggest difference, the gear shifter. Since it's a manual, of course you have your gear shifter in the middle, and it has all of the gear shifter markings, the N logo, and it's finished in this lovely golf ball shape. The other big difference is you get 3 pedals. Of course you have your clutch on the left side of the driver footwell, and that's pretty much it. No real difference in terms of the interior, but there is a difference in terms of the price. The N6 manual car starts at 9.99 lakhs ex-showroom, so roughly about a 1.15 lakh rupee difference in the ex-showroom price of both of these cars. But which one is for you? I guess there's only one way to find out. Now the first car that I'm going to be driving today is the 6-speed manual, and not very long ago I drove a 6-speed manual N-Line and I was very impressed by it. The thing is, the N-Line out of the box itself handles so well, has such a great chassis, and the interior is so modern that you already like it. And this particular car with the stage 1 tune, these sick looking Sparko wheels, and all of the little things that the owner has done has really come together very nicely. He uses it as a daily in Bangalore, and I mean, it's such a good daily. The 6-speed manual is very easy to figure out. The clutch is pretty light. The biting point is very obvious. So, even if you're not that good of a driver, you can find out the way to drive this car in a relatively easy manner. But the biggest benefit that this 6-speed manual comes with is the driver engagement. Hyundai, when they launched the i20 N Line, launched it with the 7-speed dual clutch and an IMT gearbox, which was probably one of the worst decisions ever. But with the facelift i20 N Line, they corrected their mistake, and now you have a proper 6-speed manual with 3 pedals. And I have to say, it's a goated combination. I mean, a cute little hatchback with a peppy turbo engine up front with a 6-speed manual. What is not there to like? I mean, the manual gearbox is pretty decent. You can easily figure out the throws, the clutch and everything. So, it's just a very solid combination. Now, this owner is probably not going to go to stage 2 anytime soon, or he's going to go step by step. Now, this car with the Code 6 Stage 1 tune is making roughly around 120 to 125 horsepower, which is totally fine for a daily driver. You can get your overtakes done pretty easily, and I mean, it's just such an easy car to drive. And you have all of the modern creature comforts, a massive display in the middle, digital cluster, these lovely N-Line specific seats. The N-Line gear knob also is very nice to look at. The steering wheel is fantastic, and I mean, it's just such a nice package. And if you're a true car enthusiast, get the 6-speed manual. You have no other excuse apart from just probably one hand and one leg driving. That's probably the only argument that you have. But I mean, even if you're in Bangalore and if you are a real car enthusiast, you can totally daily drive a 6-speed manual N-Line with no questions asked. This is very simple to drive, and I would definitely choose this over the DCT even if I'm staying in Bangalore. So off the bat, the DCT car is of course much more easier to drive because you only have to use one leg to drive it, and if you want, you can use one hand as well because you don't have to go around and do the business of shifting gears. The only drawback I would say of the DCT is that if you've ever driven a Polo DSG, this DCT transmission just doesn't feel as snappy as the Polos. And the other downside is that you can't really tune the DCT in the i20 N Line, but that's pretty much it. Apart from that, it is as good to drive as the manual car. The handling, the chassis and everything around it, I mean, out of the box itself is so good. Now this particular car is running a set of Cobra lowering springs, 30-40 split, and it's running these big 17-inch stance wheels. So it drives a little bit better, I think. So it's just a little bit more planted and it's just a little bit more engaging to drive in that sense, but I do not think it is going to be as engaging to drive as a manual gearbox, just because of the fact that you can have much more control when you're driving a manual. But nonetheless, you still get some really sick paddle shifters on the steering wheel which comes stock from the factory, and if you put it into manual mode and start flicking through the gears with the paddle shifters themselves, well, it's a pretty engaging driving experience in that way too. one big advantage that the DCT car gets over the manual is the fact that it gets driving modes. You get 3 different driving modes. You get Eco, Normal and Sport. I'm currently in Sport and feels a little bit more peppier to drive. I feel like the throttle response has gotten a little bit better. And this particular car is running a stage 2 tune as well from Code 6. So it's making roughly around 140 to 145 horsepower. And you can definitely feel the power gain over the stage 1 car as well. Now this car has some lowering springs, so it's a little bit more difficult to drive than the manual car, but I mean, this is not something that you have to do. And I just found out that this car has a Valvetronic exhaust, so we've opened the valves, and I have to say the DCT upshifts and the downshifts sound pretty damn nice. It's just that you have to be a little extra careful when you are going over some sharp bumps and big potholes with this lowered car. If you want to drive it on the daily, I mean, it doesn't get much better than a dual clutch transmission. The biggest problem that I had with the Polo 1 liter was that horrible 6-speed torque converter gearbox that it got. I mean, it was just so aggressive on creep and just not as smooth to drive as a dual clutch. Well, the N Line has solved all of those problems. You get a proper 6-speed manual now, and you get this slick shifting 7-speed dual clutch gearbox as well. And flick down a couple of gears, and this BMC air intake system also sounds very, very nice. And this thing has quite the nice pull. And yeah, you get a big wide smile on your face. So which car should you choose? Well, if you live in a congested city like Bangalore, well, it's a no-brainer. Get the 7-speed dual clutch car. Super easy to drive, and you still get the benefits of the amazing chassis and handling of the N Line. The only downside is that the dual clutch is not as snappy or as quick shifting as, let's say, a VAG DSG gearbox. And the other downside is that you can't really tune Hyundai DCTs, at least at the moment. So even if you're running this amazing stage 2 tune, the dual clutch gearbox does take a little bit of time to, upshift or downshift. But that is it. That is the only downside of getting the dual clutch car. But if you want proper engagement and if you want that old school hot hatch vibe, the 6-speed manual is the way to go. And if you ask me, I would particularly choose the 6-speed manual. It's so easy to drive, the clutch is super light and very easy to figure out. And in my opinion, if you're getting a car like the N Line, this is the way you should go, but I won't blame you if you get the dual clutch car. But at the end of the day, it is totally on your circumstance and your personal preference. So comment down below which one would you choose. 6-speed manual, 7-speed DCT. Let us know in the comments down below. A big shout out to Carmed for helping us arrange this shoot and giving us their amazing studio for the day. Yeah, these both i20 N lines in this black color in this studio look super, super menacing. So give them a follow on Instagram, give us a follow on Instagram, and I'll catch you in the next one.